Okay, so good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I know the house looks a little bit empty today. I'm pretty sure it's full, way fuller than we can think. With our disconnected brothers and sisters, they're probably filling up each one of those chairs here right now, and many more that we can see. So it's always a pleasure to be here on a Sunday again together, be able to study a little bit more today. Hello to everybody with us on the web, and thanks for taking a little time, being at home, taking a little time to connect to your computers and connect to us here right now. Today we're going to have a beautiful lecture from our brother Marcos Diclei, and it's going to be about sleep and dreams according to the Spiritism. So what happened with us when we're sleeping and dreaming, and what dreams are. But before, as always, let's have our lecture and our initial prayer. Okay. So from the book Happy Life from Divaldo Franco, by the Spirit of Joana de Angelis. Greet your day with a prayer of gratitude. You are alive. While there is life, the opportunities to grow and to be happy multiply. Each day is a new blessing from God, a proof of His love to you. As the hours pass, cultivate optimism and well-being. So let us all now connect our hearts and our minds to God, our Creator, to Jesus, our Master and Brother, and to all the good mentors here present, and ask them to guide us and enlighten us during this lecture, so we all can learn a little bit more about this consoler that was given to us, about those teachings that the Spiritism bring to us. And we would like to ask to our mentors to bless our brother Marco during his lecture, to guide his words, to guide his heart, so we all can learn together a little bit today. And when we leave here, we all feel a little bit more enlightened and in peace. So be it. Marco, please.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome again to the Toronto Spirit Society. And just a clarification, this was not an invitation for us to sleep and dream, but an invitation to study about sleep and dream. So I'll do my best here to keep everyone awake and make sure you don't sleep. So I'll use some voice intonations here if actually someone is eager to practice that. So let's save the practical part for tonight. Let's make sure we don't sleep. So welcome everyone who is on the internet as well. If you are laying down on bed, make sure you sit down, otherwise you have the risk of falling asleep as well. Sleep and dreams is one of those things that sometimes the kids come and ask us, and we have a hard time to explain. What happens when we sleep? Or why do we sleep? Or why we don't sleep? Or do we need to sleep X amount of hours, and what happens, and what that dream means? We have so many questions around it, and often something so basic that we do every single day, we don't have an answer, right? So today what we are going to do is discuss a little bit about it. And to my surprise, actually, not sure if some of you saw, just yesterday on the CBC channel, on the Nature of Things, which is a show that I really like it, with Robert Suzuki, there was a topic exactly about that. What does it happen when we sleep, right? What happens at night? So I took a peek about it. I couldn't watch the whole show, but I saw some parts of it, and it's very interesting. And we'll see what they covered, what they do not cover, and we are going to cover that right here today. So there's a lot of research on neuroscientists about sleep, right? It's such an important part of us human beings, and that's what this show was all about. Now, when we look at us, I think there's a little bit of common sense already on what happens when we do not sleep properly. I think all of us have a good feeling. We know ourselves a little bit. We know our spouses a little bit. We can trace a pattern with our children, maybe even with our bosses when they don't sleep properly, right? So one of the first things that I believe everyone is very aware of what happens when we do not sleep is that we become like the angry cat here, right? Nothing is good enough. You know, there's even research that proves that lack of sleep impact our judgment, to the point that when we look at someone and their facial expression, we take it completely wrong. Maybe someone is looking at us with a neutral expression, and we just say, why Anna is looking at me that way? Maybe she doesn't like me? Do I stink or what? Right? And we call in Portuguese melindre. Every little thing may hurt our feelings. It may not have no reason at all, but that's how we take it. Right? So little things in life. But there's also research on that show. If you guys watch it, you can see that it impairs our ability to make decisions. There was a simple test of playing cards, right? And the girl who didn't sleep, she couldn't think properly. So she failed a lot on the test. And the person who actually slept, she did well. So think about soldiers, police officers, right? And their ability to think on circumstances and make decisions and react if they are sleep deprived, it's a disaster, right? Talking about disasters, if you look at statistics as well about accidents, sometimes you're driving on 401, which is a straight line for I don't know how many kilometers, and we see some miserable accidents, and then we ask ourselves, how in a sane mind someone can crash that badly in a straight line? Not surprisingly, lots of the causes of car accidents is being sleep deprived, right? So our senses are not in good shape. Other consequences is loss of memory, right? We can't memorize things. Also, another interesting fact on research is that people who actually go to a training or learn something, if they don't sleep properly, they have a hard time retaining, processing, and absorbing that information, and consequently remembering them to actually practice. So that shows research as well. There's someone who went to a training and slept, someone who didn't, and the results are remarkable. The person who actually slept after the training, she was able to have a performance much higher than the person who did not sleep, right? So think about ourselves in our jobs. When we have those all-nighters, spend the night working, expecting to have that great presentation on the following day, sleep deprived, it's not going to be as good as we think. Right? Or if we spend the whole night awake for a test in the following day, it may be the best strategy. So we're not even talking about the spiritual aspects of it. We're talking about, our organic, our psychological, our mindset effects of sleep deprived, how important it is, right? And the research goes on and on, even talk about brain damage, saying that if you don't have proper sleep, we start losing cells, neural cells, right? It's a long list, so I'm going to stop right here. But beyond all these organic aspects of sleep, this mental and psychological aspects of sleep, what really happens when we sleep? That the CBC show didn't cover, right? Why do we dream? What do our dreams actually mean? And why some of us say, I don't dream at all. I sleep like a rock. I crash in the bed and wake up in the morning in a complete blackout. It's no dream at all. I never dream. I don't know what it is. Is this really true? There's people who actually don't dream at all, right? And why some of us have good dreams, others have nightmares? Why some people have such a hard time sleeping or wake up at night, successful times, and others, they are still sleeping. That's why they're not here. So why those differences? So that's some of those things that I hope that by the end of our conversation today, we can shed some light into it as the best of our ability. And we are actually not using things that I personally know, because I don't know anything. I'm simply repeating most of what Allan Kardec and the benefactor spirits actually bring to us, especially in the Spirits book. If you are new to Spiritism, you don't know much about it, here's the starting point as a humble suggestion to all of us. And obviously, we touched a little bit on the works from Chico Xavier and Divaldo Franco, who are really great missionaries and mediums from Brazil and have an extensive work that are really trustworthy. So we are touching on those points. Now, for those who have challenge with sleeping, we always use techniques to address that, right? For some people, it's really a severe problem. So there's obviously techniques that can help. We Spiritists, or even spiritualists in general, we tend to blame everything on the spirits, right? So if you're not sleeping properly, oh, it's an obsessor. There is an obsession in my house, there's spirits after me, hence I don't sleep. Everything is spirit, it's never us. So even if we try techniques such as counting sheep, who has tried counting sheep in the past? How effective they are? They're not effective at all, right? So there's several techniques and it doesn't work, right? So why it doesn't work is really a case of spiritual obsession, or maybe not, right? Think about the stimulus that we have in our environment nowadays. With the amount of electronic equipment, there is research that demonstrate that the radiation emitted by the screens can actually affect the hormones that affect our sleep. So there's many people who are not sleeping because they have spent too much in front of the television, in front of the computer, and even if they don't do computer and television, the cell phones, right? And if you put the cell phone down, there's still people who likes to understand what's happening with their friends at night, so they set Facebook to give an alarm when someone popped them a message at 1 a.m. So how can you sleep with that, right? So you're trying to sleep and blink, you got a message. Here's Marcos Diclei inviting you for a barbecue tomorrow. So there's no spiritual obsession. It's simple environmental circumstances. So we have to prepare, right? Or we go and watch those horror movies at night with vampires and all that stuff. It causes impression in our mind. Even if you say, nah, that's all fantasy, I know. But it gets impregnated in our minds, right? Or wars and shooting and all that stuff. You got excited about that. Watch Rocky IV, for example, the boxer. You got excited with it, right? You want to punch the guy together. So it brings our instincts. And you watch that before going to bed, you're not going to sleep properly, right? Another factor, food. So we all have those light, being Brazilians, right? Light dinner with a nice feijoada, right? Or you eat a whole chicken or a nice giant steak at night, and then you go to bed. You can't sleep. So it's no spiritual obsession. You didn't prepare enough. Coffee drinkers, especially people from Minas Gerais. I was adopted by Minas Gerais. I'm crazy for coffee. If my wife and my daughter are not on top, I'm drinking coffee too much, and then there are nights that I just don't sleep because of coffee, right? And if you think about kids, the same thing. I when I was a children, I was afraid of Scooby-Doo cartoons, so I couldn't watch Scooby-Doo cartoons at night because I wouldn't sleep because of that. So sometimes we also think about our children. So what's happening with my children? I think there's a problem. No. You are keeping them the whole day on cell phone. You are giving them the wrong kind of food, and you are putting them on scary, media before they go to bed. So let's not take everything from a spiritual point of view, right? And there is also organic factors. There may be illnesses impacting our ability to sleep, right? Apnea, for example, which is caused by different reasons, but we stop breathing at night. There's people who stop breathing at night, and for more than we think we don't, we wake up in microseconds and we cannot hold a deep sleep. So we don't wake up well, right? We don't sleep properly. Serious problems. So number one thing is, if we are not sleeping well, we should see a doctor, right? So that's the first thing I want to let very clear here. There are many, many things that affect our ability to sleep, our dreams, and in many cases, we need to see a doctor. I think spiritual treatment is a complement whenever there is a need for it, but we always should seek medical assistance. That's the number one thing I want to get clear. Are you guys still awake with me?
Yes.
Good. Thank you. So people at home, don't sleep. We have our digital medium over there, Marcos Diclei. So if you have comments or questions, please chat with him. He is very awake. I can see it here. So are there spiritual factors that affect our ability to sleep? Yes, they are. And they are many. And we often neglect. Everything that CBC News said yesterday, everything that I said so far, we are usually pretty good to be aware, although we are pretty bad to follow them and do things properly. But the spiritual side, that's what we really neglect. So we'll spend a few minutes describing that. And again, we are not going to cover anything that we think. We are going to discuss about things that Allan Kardec and the benefactor spirits brought to us. If you want to know more in details, because it is an extensive topic, we are not going to cover everything. We are going to give a bird's eye view on it. Here are some of the questions where the specific topics about sleep and dreams are covered, right? Questions 401 to 419 and some of the 682, 683, and there's probably much more stuff. And if you have a hard time studying the Spirit's book alone, join us on Wednesdays or Thursdays, 7 p.m. Here's a plug for the courses. If you cannot come to Toronto, we always webcast. So join us through the internet. There's no excuse for us not to study, right? So the question 401, very beginning, here's the question. During this sleep, does the soul rest like the body? What do we think? Don't we shut down like the body, assuming that everything is perfect, all the good conditions? We shut our eyes, our spiritual eyes, let's put this way, also close. And we spend all the night in bed, idle, just doing our brain processing, body cleanup, and all that stuff. Isn't that the way it is? Yes, it's not the way it is. If you, stepping forward a little bit here on what I want to say, but the CBC show and the research points that all of our dreams are actually reflection of our worries and concerns. Everything we do every day when it's time to go to bed, our brain processes all that information for learning, for memory retention, all that stuff. And it stops right there. It's pretty much an organic function and helps our body to recharge. But that's really not true. You will all be absolutely right. Our body is there on that energy restoration process. Our brain is doing its processing to clean up, and there's some marvelous processing happening over there. But the most marvelous process is to know that we are free or freer. We leave our bodies on bed and we are free to do what we choose to do. And we'll cover what are the things that we choose to do. But the most important thing is that we are active. We enjoy a similar freedom as we one day will enjoy when we die. What? Yeah, we pretty much die every night. We leave our bodies and we are active because the spirit doesn't need that rest as much as our body needs. Right? So the sleep is actually a precious opportunity for all of us. And here is a picture from a story, actually, a real life story from the book, The Missionaries of the Light, Reincarnation of Sigismundo. It's a beautiful story, beautiful book by Chico Xavier and André Luiz. And here you can see two people laying down on bed, better saying their bodies are laying down on bed because we are not our bodies. We do have a body, but we are spirits. And standing right beside their bodies, we see them, their spirits, right? And interesting enough, you see a silver cord from their connecting their heads, their spiritual body with their physical body. That's why we don't enjoy a complete freedom. We are like a balloon connected to the ground by a cord, right? Connected to the pole. So we can go, but we are always connected to our bodies. And we can see that the lady here chose to talk to her grandma in this case. She was in a more peaceful mood or spiritual condition. And her husband, we can see that he's a bit concerned. So he was in a different spiritual condition than her. So these are us at night, right? It happens every single night. But the CBC doesn't cover that, because we still have a hard time where science wants to prove things in the way they have studied and proven things so far. And for new areas of knowledge, there has to be new ways of exploring and proving things, right? So we enter in relationship with other spirits, as you can see, right? There are other spirits over there, like her grandma, and we enter in contact with them. It happens at night. How can we confirm that? Oh, it's just a bunch of ballooning and fantasy. This doesn't happen. Well, if we look at our dreams, if we analyze our dreams, we can clearly see that it is not only about processing memory, processing the worries that we have during the day. There are dreams that are so real that we say, I actually met that person. And that is really true. People that may be in other countries and still incarnated, we can meet them. People who passed away and discarnated a while ago, and we still can meet them. Right? So some encounters can be pleasant, others encounters not so pleasant, excuse me. So a dream is a memory of what happened with us at night. It's not only processing of information. We enjoy more faculties that we don't have as incarnate spirits. And we see on the books from André Luiz how many perceptions and colors and sounds and sensations and feelings that the spirits have that they didn't have when they were incarnated. Because we are so restricted by our body. For more that it's a marvelous machine, it limits a lot of our senses, our spiritual faculties, right? And when we study mediumship, we started to see some of those faculties that in some people starts to develop, right? Even when incarnate. Another interesting fact is that sometimes we may remember our past through those dreams. And there's even people who have revelations of the future. Oh, why doesn't it happen? Because in our case, we usually go after what is the lottery number of next week? Where is my husband or wife for the future? When I'm going to meet her or him? So we will look at things in a very short and selfish manner. And usually revelation of the future comes when things are relevant for more people than you yourself. If we think about prophets, right? The Old Testament, the New Testament, some of the mediums nowadays, we don't need to go that back in history, they have those revelations. But those revelations usually make sense and they benefit many people. That's why they happen. And that's why they may not happen with us. It may happen in specific cases. Now, here's a nice definition from the spirits on the spirits book. It's the same question 402. They say that sleep is the door that God opens to incarnate spirits to us for contacting their friends in heaven. It is their break after work while they await the great deliverance, final liberation that must restore them to their true environment. So our true environment is not Earth? No, it is not. We are here as some of our children are on grade 7, grade 11, or university right now, and they will spend some time and they will leave. so are we. We are not our bodies. We have a body today. We have this present existence, and the day will come when we will return to our true life. Some spirits even compare our reincarnation. It's a bit heavy comparison. It may feel that way for some, but let's always remember that the incarnation is a blessing. But some spirits compare the life on earth as a prison, as if we were in jail, confined to go through our trials. For those under expiation, it is truly a prison, right? But imagine that prisoner having the possibility of going home at the end of the day, seeing his children, his wife, her husband, and make sure everything is okay and coming back on the following day. Wouldn't that be a true blessing? So that's exactly what the dreams are for us. Oh yeah, there are some prisoners that would go to the family to see because they care, but there are prisoners that they would go and commit crimes again. Exactly. God give us that door, that opportunity, but we do have the free will to do what we want to some extent with that opportunity. So there are some of us who are not going to do good things during that break, right? So we'll cover that a little bit. And that's why some of the dreams are not so pleasant as others. Another interesting thing that struck me here is that we will contacting their friends in heaven. So heaven here means the spiritual realm, right? Because we often think heaven as other religious traditions, as the place full of clouds and angels with harps, right? And hell is the other extreme. So in this case, we should think about the spiritual realm, which is not confined into a place far from the earth, but it is here among us, right? There's spirits among us here, on the street, anywhere that we go. So why we said it depends, the quality or the type of our dreams, why it depends, why it's pleasant in some cases and not so pleasant in other cases. We must remember that we are like a wireless device during the day. Wherever we go, we are connected to each other. Even if we don't want, that's who we are. Our mental emissions and vibrations will hit others with negative vibrations or with positive vibrations, and vice versa. The negative vibrations from others will hit us, or the positive vibrations from others will also hit us. It's like those Bluetooth devices that you get into the door, you get the wireless, and your internet is working. It just connects, and we are that way. That's why sometimes some people are not in so good mood, and that changes our mood, because we vibrate in the same frequency of that person. There are other cases where we learn to deal with that, right? Through positive thinking, through prayers, and when that person comes with that negative vibration, we are able to resist because we don't vibrate in the same frequency. This happens during the day. Imagine during the night, because during the day we are still in that box that is our body. But during the night, we leave this box behind and we are free. So the connections that we make, they are even bigger, right? And I want to quickly bring a topic from this book, Seara dos Médiuns, and I don't know the properly translation of that. It's like the field for mediums, right? The field of work. And Emmanuel actually talks about the range of mental vibrations, that we are in different ranges. And what determines these ranges, or how we govern our thoughts, are basically three things. Number one is experience, our experience, what we have learned so far, our own thoughts, our own ability to choose, right? So anything that happens, any encounter, we always have that background that we bring. That is ours, our thoughts. It's not the wireless connection. It's mine. It's our decision. The second factor are these stimulus. So things that happen around us, people that we meet, circumstances around us that make us think, when we turn the TV and we see news, that affects us in a way or another. When we meet someone, that encounter will affect us in one way or another. How we respond, that is ours. But that stimulus always happens. So that's the second. And the third factor is actually inspiration. And he says in a nice way here that inspiration comes from a collective group of foreign thoughts. That's the connectivity with others. So we are immersed into a soup of foreign thoughts that are just circulating around us. And sometimes we seek for that inspiration. We go after them through a prayer, right? Or seeking someone to talk and ask for an advice, or through learning. Sometimes we seek. But sometimes we just accept them. They come our way and we accept because we have affinities with that. So some of that may be very positive, inviting us to do something good. But sometimes what reaches is actually vibrating with our inferior tendencies, with our vices, with the things that we are fighting within us. Like Paul of Tarsus used to say, that battle within was we are fighting with that internally, and we reach that amount of vibrations, and sometimes we give away and we take that course. So when we are at night, all those three factors come into play, and we make our choices. Sometimes we make good choices, sometimes we make bad choices. So let's take a look. Good choices. So here is from the book Heaven and Earth, also from André Luiz and Chico Xavier. Who is the incarnate spirit? Who is the discarnate spirit here? The boy or the girl? You can see somewhere. It's hard to see, right? But he has a little cord. I'm even having a hard time to see. There's a little cord here. There's a little cord going to the window because he is sleeping in his room, and a group of spirit benefactors all in the background allowed this lady Odila to come and meet him because they had experiences in the past and they had to readjust. So is that a good choice? Yeah, why not? Reconciliation. Who knows how many cases of obsessions, right? Or antipathy, right? Repulsion between people are now resolved while we are asleep. If we go and meet them and say, I'm sorry, I apologize. So that's exactly what happened here between these two. One incarnate and the other discarnate. So if we lost someone, as we used to say, someone passed away, maybe we'll meet them at night. And we think it's just a dream. It is not just a dream. If we are in those conditions to meet them and vice versa, we will actually meet each other. And there's many people who had such experiences. And they wake up with that impression. Or sometimes the dreams are crystal clear. Like Divaldo Franco says, if you have that dream in technicolor, is a term that we don't use it very much, but everything looks perfect in color and so real, that actually really happened. And it was really a good experience to be able to retain that. But if you didn't have that much of a reality and things were a bit confusing, that was probably not a very good dream, right? But it actually happens at night. So not only we meet people, but sometimes we come to the spirit center, or we go to a spiritual place in a spiritual city. In André Luiz's books, there are so many examples of people who are incarnated, like our friend here. They leave their bodies and they go to a spiritual city for a course. They gather like we are gathered here to learn, to study together. Others, if we are in the spiritual condition for it, we don't go to study, we go to help others. Isn't that a blessing? Be useful to others. So we can do that at night while we are sleeping. And so many cases of positive things that we can do while we are sleeping. It depends on our vibration and our choices, right? In the spirits, here in the Spirits book, they say there's a big difference from what we want while we are awake and what we want when we are free as spirits. Sometimes we say, oh, I really want to meet that person, my father, my parent, my friend. But when we go to sleep, really our inner desires come forward, and maybe we don't care about that person. It's interesting, yeah? Because we are influenced over here and we say something. But once we are free, we really give way to all of who we truly are, our vices, our imperfections, or our virtues. So sometimes what we want while awake may be slightly different than when we are sleeping, when we are free from our bodies. It's quite interesting. And sometimes we make bad choices. Like this case here, you can clearly see who is incarnated, right? The lady here and this gentleman who has the cord, so they are asleep, in their sleep. And because of they spoke so much about this gentleman here, Leonardo, while they were awake, they attracted him. See the wireless here? Talking about that person, criticizing that person. They capture that and they come because you were calling them. That's why it's so important to be vigilant. So Leonardo comes, it was waiting for them to go to sleep. As soon as they are on bed, they are sleeping, they leave their bodies, then there's Leonardo waiting for them. And not to have a friendly conversation. He was complaining, why you were talking about me, why you were criticizing, the mistake was yours, and there's a whole drama over there. Where it becomes a lot of conflict. It wasn't a pleasant encounter, right? Because of our choices, sometimes choices that we made during the day to criticize. But sometimes because of our pride, we have that rancor, that anger in our hearts that we can only think about that person. We want revenge. Guess what? We go to bed, we are after that person because we want a revenge. And sometimes people who did things wrong to us, they don't even remember. They have no intention, but we are connected to them. And when we are free, we are slaves of that, right? So if we really have our hearts really heavy with resentment, it's really bad for us because we are causing conflict and sometimes causing organic damage to our own health. Not even talk about our spiritual health. So we have that bad dream that we think it's a nightmare, right? In this case here, our friend here woke up. His name is Mario Silva. He woke up in the morning. He was talking to his mom during the breakfast. He was tired. He was feeling tired. He didn't sleep well. Maybe he slept long hours, but didn't woke up rested. Have you ever felt that way? And he said, I don't know why. I slept with a prison and women crying and a sheriff after me. So Leonardo was actually a soldier from the War of Paraguay, right? He was not a sheriff. And he was not in prison. He was in his own home. But that's the image in his mind. I was in a prison and women crying and a sheriff after me. I don't understand. This dream doesn't make sense to me, right? Because that's what usually the dreams are for us. A confusing memory. Because the impressions that we receive during our dreams are not received by our bodies, right? Anything that I'm doing here right now, it's actually from my body. I can hear, I'm talking, I can see. Everything that I touch, it's on my physical senses. But when we are at night, free from our bodies, everything happens at the spiritual level. And thanks to that connection, some impressions come to our body, but our body is so heavy that we can't remember. Unless we are in an evolutionary, stage, that we can actually remember things clearly, right? Like Divaldo in some of his dreams that he describes, or Chico in some of his dreams. It's a different story than us here. That's why some of us say, I don't dream at all, because we just don't remember. But we all do something at night. We all dream, which means we interact with others at night. We just don't remember, right? And sometimes these memories are quite confusing because when they come back to our minds, our brains are very limited to absorb and retain how things really are, right? So, and the choices, the bad choices that we make are not only conflict. And André Luiz describes in the same, in the book, The Messengers, I think, he talks about the missionaries of light. He talks about our central theme, and we had a lecture once about this here. Every single one of us, we have a central topic that makes everything gravitates around us. And that central topic is our center of worries and concerns and desires and expectations that sometimes we carry for multiple incarnations. And sometimes they were the root cause of our failures, incarnation after incarnation. Some of us may have the central theme on the libido, on the sexual side, with excesses and abuses, and all that we think is about that sexual desire, our inferior desires. Sex is a blessing from God, but sometimes we go astray and we use that in an improper manner, and we create a lot of debt and damage to others and to ourselves. For some, that central theme is greed, is money. I don't care. I only care about money, my success, my professional success, and power, and this and that. Right? And we fail miserably time over and over again. For others, it may be addiction, pleasures of drug abuse. Could be heavy drugs, could be alcohol, could be smoke or whatever. Why I'm saying that? Because when we are free at night from our bodies, where we are going? We are going exactly to fulfill our central themes. I may be in a bar with other spirits, just absorbing energy from others, getting drunk, go to the spots where there's drug people, or I'm, concerned about power and war and fights. I will go to where I find discussions and fights and conflicts, right? My central theme is on that sexual imbalance. That's the place I'm going. I'll go where I find people that vibrate in the same vibrational range that I am. So that's what happens at night. It's not heaven. It can be a nice place, yes, if we choose, but can be a pretty inferior place, even more likely to be, because that's who we are. We still have that inferiority. We still have that conflict between trying to improve and do good things while we try to rid ourselves from inferior things, right? So I just want to make sure it's clear that we're not only talking about conflicts here, but choices, our desires. Where our heart really is where we are going at night. And when we wake up in the morning, we will feel good and rested and inspired if we visit someone good, if we did something good, or we'll feel tired and full of anger, right? Or full of guilt because we went to a place that was not that good. That's really what happens at night. And that kind of explains how we feel in the morning when we wake. Are you all with me? Still awake?
Yes.
Good. So I hope that makes sense to you all. And actually, depending on, like in the case of Leonardo here, right? He was actually attracted. So sometimes our adversaries from the past, people that we may have hurt in the past, or we may have hurt them, right? They may be just there waiting for us to go to bed. That's why we have that aversion sometimes to sleep, or we have a hard time to go to bed, because we have those companions just waiting for us. Just come on, go to bed. And as soon as we sleep and we free ourselves, there they are to have those conversations or to cause us pain or to frighten us. But let's always remember, there are these cases, but there are always the organic cases. There are habits and there are also illnesses. So it's important for us to understand that we are a holistic being, right? Not everything is spiritual, but this is the part that we often neglect because we don't value as much our sleep, our dreams, and we don't prepare for that. So I'm already heading to my conclusion here. And this is actually a summary of what we're talking about here, right? So what is really our sleep at the end of the day? It's an opportunity for our bodies to rest, recover, recharge, as they say. Nowadays, we know that is way more than that. Encourage you to take a peek at that documentary over there to understand all those facts about memory retention, learning, processing, the whole organic cleanup of our brains. So that's one part of it. But we must not neglect the moral recharge, the blessed opportunity that we do have to recharge our hopes, because we have so much trouble and challenges within ourselves. If we look at our world nowadays, it's so challenging. We need to recharge our hopes. We need to recharge our faith, right? Hope that things will be better, hopes that we can improve ourselves. And if we are shutting down this window, then things become really hard for us. So I hope that this conversation today can help us to actually look at our sleep time differently. Some may not be able to sleep 8 hours, 10 hours, maybe 6 at maximum, 7, but may that window of time actually be the best as it can be, right? We discussed about how the quality of our dreams can be different according to our habits, but we also saw the importance of our spiritual discipline to have a good night of sleep. And I want to leave you with one particular message of how can we better prepare? How can I actually choose better? How can we improve my chances to go after good spirits who wants to do good thing, study, help others, and etc. that can help me to improve, and trying to be far from those who wants to drag us to the inferior things that we still carry. How can we do that? One thing that doesn't cost any money and that we can do in a few minutes, sitting on bed, in the washroom, wherever, is prayer. It's prayer. And at the very end of the Spirit book, according to the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 28, I think 38, there is a prayer when going to bed. And it's like 2 or 3 lines of a very simple prayer that we should get used to it in our own words. Just asking our guardian angels, the good spirits, to be with us and help to guide us, that as soon as we are free, we are in the company of good spirits that wanted to do good things, not to continue to feed our vices. That prayer can make a big, big difference. Obviously, our preparation throughout the day will make a difference, because again, our wireless connection may attract people to us. What kind of people are we attracting? Right? We all have those bullies, right? Since the school, preschool, but in our offices, neighbors, we all have bullies, even the grown-ups. There's people that we don't have that affinity, and they are always criticizing, they're all after us. Often at night, we go to bed thinking about them. Why don't we pray for them and break that cycle? Pray for them. We don't know what is happening in their lives. We cannot say. Maybe they are going through a struggle and hardship, and they see something on us that they can't have. Maybe that spark of faith that we have, they can't have that. And they are after us and criticizing because they want us something. They just don't know how to express. And instead of us act as Christians and help them, no, we give fire to the fire. So how about we start praying for them? If someone is persecuting, wants to do bad things with you, sometimes you cannot be with them. But you can pray for them. That's a Christian attitude, right? So instead of asking for help only, which is what we should do, how about praying for others, especially those who we don't feel sympathy for, those who we cannot explain, but we don't go along well. Pray for them. That's a pretty good starting point to prepare yourself for good company at night, right? And still help people who may need. So I strongly encourage you to take a look at this short prayer at the very end of the Gospel According to Spiritism. If you don't have the Gospel According to Spiritism, just Google it. You'll find PDFs in Portuguese or in English. It's all over the place. Another thing, Divaldo Franco has videos on the internet about this very topic. And he says that it's not very rare that we wake up after nightmares at night, right? Even grown-ups or kids will wake up with nightmares, and we are afraid to go back to sleep. So we cannot explain, but we wake up with a bad dream and we can't sleep anymore. And he says sometimes we're really afraid to go back to bed and sleep again because we know that there's people waiting for us. It wasn't a pleasant encounter. Maybe an obsessor spirit or someone who we have been challenges with. And if we go to bed again, we will encounter them, right? We keep that connection. So Divaldo says, prayer is one thing that we can do. But the second and final thing is about reprogramming our brains, reprogramming our thinking, reprogramming our wireless transmitter. Instead of, thinking about negative things or worries, project in our minds positive images. Think about nature, think about someone that you love, think about Jesus, think about positive things, and have a faith in a prayer asking that when we go back to sleep that we don't have that encounter. Or even pray if there is someone that we may have caused, we may have hurted, that this person can be actually helped, taken to a spiritual center, a spiritual place, spiritist center, or a spiritual place where they can be helped. Again, pray for them. But it's very important that we reprogram our minds. Something that is very important even for us while in our day-to-day lives, right? And also when we talk about nightmares, we think about kids. Right? For those who are parents, there are children who really have a hard time sleeping. We don't understand. Again, doctors may need to be consulted before anything. But in many cases, it could be spiritual influence. Yeah. For those who study a little bit from Emmanuel, especially on the book The Consoler, he says that the incarnation actually consolidates at 7 years old, 7 years of age. So until then, the spirit is still adjusting and adapting. And maybe the spirit is afraid of the challenges and trials and that he or she is going to experience in the incarnation. And maybe during these dreams, this came about, right? Or maybe those children actually have people who they have had, unpleasant experiences in the past, and they come to adjust their accounts. So it's very important that we remain with the same posture of prayer. And Divaldo also say that it's important that we as parents acknowledge that. Listen to them. If they say, I had a dream with someone, that someone was here, acknowledge that, right? Because that's important. Give them the confidence that we are there to help them and pray with them. And maybe tell them a story that is edifying, that lifts their hearts and their minds, because that actually happens, right? And one resource that we often fail for more than we are spiritists, we think passes are only for the Spiritist center, for the mediums. But in this circumstance, we could give a pass, a magnetic pass in our children and help them, right, to clear up their minds of their worries and give them calmness. So we could give a pass, which is a hand in position, as Jesus used to do, as we do in the Spiritist center. So as you have them with you and pray with them, even mentally, imagine positive energies going through their bodies to their minds and help them as well with the pass. So it's very important, and we often neglect that, right? So those are some of the things that we can do that can actually help us to better prepare to enjoy the full potential of the night of sleeps that we all have every night. So hope that we can all remember this. And another important habit is that when we wake up in the morning, that we also give thanks. Not only for another day in this planet, which is a blessed opportunity. There's so many spirits who would like to be where we are right now. But also a prayer to thank our guardian angels for their help during the night. Because we may not remember, but maybe they were there holding us, guiding us, assisting us through the night, right? So let's give thanks to God for this day and give thanks to the spirits for protection during the night. For the family that we have, for the house that we have. We are so blessed every day, and we take it for granted a lot, right? So as Paul of Tarsus would say, in everything give thanks. And I thank you for being awake until now with me. Thank you. Teresa?
So thank you, Marco, for a great lecture. So have any questions or comments about it? Did anybody have any dreams and wants to ask?
Yeah.
Did
you dream?
Did you dream?
Angela.
About the dreams. Dreams also can be a warning, warn you about something that could happen,
Yeah.
or to bring you back to your path or your mission or whatever. And in the dream, you also can have situations like later on in life, you're gonna say, "Oh, this is like a deja vu. I feel like I lived that before. I see that before." So it's always a message.
That's true. If you actually read some of those questions, I think particularly 402, it talks about that, the premonition, right? Sometimes the spirits may warn us of something or give us a recommendation, counsel us to something. It doesn't mean that it is going to happen, because we are the masters of our destiny. We make our choices because of the free will. But it's not very uncommon that we leave something that I think this may have happened. And maybe someone warned us that this would actually happen, right? So it's hard for us to precise, but that may actually happen. What is not actually true and we cannot trust very much is like the fortune tellers that may say, like in my family, for example, they would say, "Oh, if you dream that your teeth is falling, it's because someone is going to die." Yeah, I had that in my family, right? If you dream with a monkey, play the lottery and bet on the monkey. In Brazil, we have numbers and animals, right? So it doesn't work that way. There's no such thing, right? It's really an absurd. That's the language that the spirits mention in the spirits book. But there is a relation that they may warn us something, may give us some counsel for something, and some of this may actually come true. Some, maybe not, because we changed the course, right? Thank you, Marco.
I just want to add to that. The Revelation shows pretty well that our memory of the dream is completely clogged up. So what you can, is sometimes you wake up and you remember an accident. Maybe the accident had nothing to do with you. Maybe it wasn't even an accident. It's just because you had a conversation and you saw something and you talked to someone during the dream, and then you collect that little bits and pieces of all those things, and your brain kind of recreates a story that sometimes doesn't make any sense. So what I'm saying is that don't, of course, take it as information that's valid, but sometimes we have to, don't be scared, or don't think that's like a mess. Don't think too much about it, because the vast majority of times we cannot remember most of it. And the journal shows a very interesting story that this lady, I don't remember which book now, but the lady goes to a meeting in a spiritual city and to discuss several topics with other mothers that were creating kids and all that. And within this probably night-long discussion and meeting people and all that, the only thing she could remember is like this little crystal flower that breaks in pieces, right? And then she wakes up with that, and then she kind of comes up with a completely alternate story about that whole encounter, but it was probably 0.5% of what happened, and all mixed up in pieces like a puzzle.
Yeah.
So I think that's what happens most of the time. So take it with a grain of salt.
Yep.
Take information, but sometimes we can remember clearly what happened, and we all have that possibility, right? Some more than others, Like some people will remember details of everything that happened during the night. That's amazing. But most of us will remember like bits and pieces.
Yeah.
So just take it careful. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very true, Marco. And that's what I just said, right? There's a lot of misunderstanding about those things, and we always need to remember that we are the masters of our lives. We are in control, and we determine our destiny with our choices. Our choices. No one can make those choices for us. So we can't live based on dreams and worry what do they mean. Or horoscope, which is another discussion. I don't want to go there, but there's people who don't leave home without horoscope, and if it's bad, they don't leave home at all. We can't live that way. It doesn't work that way, right? It's very, very important.
Any other questions or comments?
Can a dream have nothing to do with the spiritual world or anything like this?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we discussed, right? If you watch that show that I told you, and the spirits talk about that as well, a lot of what we dream, it's influenced by what happens during the day as well, and our worries. So the lady that was on the show interviewed, she has cats and animals, and she is a kind of advocate for animal protection, etc. So she dreams a lot about dogs and cats. And the guy, without knowing that, he analyzed her dreams. He asked her to create a dream log or a sleep log for a couple weeks, right? And he started to describe, oh, you're very worried about your personal presence, your aspects in communication. Yeah, she's a TV host. She dreams all those things. You're very worried with animals, blah, blah, blah. Well, that is really true. I love animals. I am an advocate, etc. So it reflects on our dreams because it's our worries, right? And there's people whose dreams that they are working all the time. It's not very difficult to see people actually leaving their beds and going to office because that's our number one worry, right? So part of that is a reflection of our worries during the day, what happens during the day, but there's always that spiritual aspect as well. And as Marcos said, it's difficult for us to precise because we can't remember that very much. Our worries, that is easy because we are with them awake every day. So we carry them. It's easier to remember them, right?
I have to remember also that for our bodies to partially disconnect, we have to go into deep sleep. Without that deep sleep phase, we cannot disconnect. So if we go to work, really worry about the project, that I have at work, and like I'm worried, and then my mind, I don't shut off my mind, I'll never get to that deep sleep phase. So I'm actually on the light side, I don't know if you can call light sleep, and I'm just ruminating my own thoughts, actually. And then all those things that I wake up that was in my mind was actually just me ruminating all my thoughts, because I actually probably didn't even disconnect, I didn't even sleep, I didn't go to deep sleep at all, because I kept myself alert, partially alert with the worries and the mind, right? So then whatever you woke up with your own thoughts and what you had in your mind.
Yeah. So that's why Divaldo, always mentioned about the importance of preparation, right? Not only spiritually with the prayer or reading the gospel, but paying attention to the organic aspects or mental aspects that we discussed at the very beginning, right? It's very important.
Okay.
Any question on the internet, Marco?
Nadia said that was a very important message and a clear explanation and good suggestions.
Thank you, Nadia. Glad to have you with us. Nadia is actually in the UK watching us. So it's almost time to sleep. 5 p.m. Not there. Maybe
Dinner
time for a nap.
I just want to add one thing that I saw in the TV, that our minds, our brains, they get the message of the light that's still day, right? So monitors, TVs, cell phones, the light that comes from those screens give a message to our brain that's still day. So that's why we keep awake.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it changes your hormone levels, actually.
It does. And there are some glasses today with some blue coverage to prevent the blue light which come from the devices actually to go to your eyes.
So we can stay more
inventions.
time.
We can work until 1 minute before we crush our eyes. It doesn't work that way. Yeah? All right. Thank you. Thanks.
So let us all now get prepared for our passes. So if everybody can kind of stay, like For example, there's just one person on this line. If you can have everybody kind of lined up, it's a little bit easier for the